Am I the jerk for subletting my spare room to a stranger without telling my landlord? I'm 27, and for the last 2 years I've rented the top floor of an old converted house. It's got 2 bedrooms, and honestly I only need one, but the rent went up twice this year and my paycheck did not. So when a coworker mentioned that her cousin, Priya, had just moved to the city for a nursing contract and couldn't find anywhere affordable, I offered the spare room. $300 a month to month, no big deal. Priya turned out to be lovely. Quiet, clean, worked night shifts, and we barely even crossed paths. For the first time in months I wasn't lying awake doing math about groceries. Here's the thing. My landlord, Gerald, is the kind of man who measures the lawn with a ruler. My lease has a clause that says no subletting and no guests staying longer than 14 consecutive days without written permission. I read it. I knew it was there. I just figured. What he doesn't see won't bother him, and Priya wasn't throwing parties or parking in his precious driveway. She was a ghost who occasionally left me leftover curry. 2 months in, Gerald showed up unannounced to check a smoke detector, which is technically his right with notice, except he gave me about 90 seconds of notice by texting from my own porch. He saw a second pair of shoes by the door, a nursing lanyard on the hook, and a name he didn't recognize on a package. He put it together fast. That evening I got a very long email. He accused me of running an illegal sublet, threatened to terminate my lease, and demanded I remove the unauthorized occupant within 7 days or he'd start eviction proceedings against me. I'll admit my first instinct was to panic and apologize. But then I actually reread my lease, and I looked up the tenant laws in my area, and it turns out a few things were on my side. Gerald had entered twice in the past year without proper written notice. He'd also never returned the itemized receipts for a maintenance fee he'd been quietly tacking onto my rent, which it turns out isn't allowed here. So instead of groveling, I wrote back. Politely. I said I understood his concern about the lease clause, that Priya was a guest contributing to household costs and not a formal tenant, and that I'd be happy to discuss adding her to the lease properly. Then I mentioned, just as calmly, that I'd been keeping records of his entries and the undocumented fees, and that I assumed we both wanted to keep things by the book going forward. The tone of his next email changed completely. Suddenly, there was no talk of eviction. He proposed we start fresh, offered to add Priya as an approved occupant for a small increase, and even quietly dropped the mystery maintenance fee off the next invoice. Priya got to stay. My rent effectively went down. I felt like I'd won. Except my sister thinks I'm the jerk here. She says I went behind my landlord's back, broke a clause I knew about, and then, when I got caught, basically strong-armed the man with a threat instead of just owning up to it. She says Gerald's a landlord, sure, but he's also a 70-year-old guy who relies on that rent, and that I turned a simple, honest conversation into a standoff, because I didn't want to admit I broke the rules first. My best friend, on the other hand, high-fived me and said landlords count on tenants not knowing their rights, and that I did nothing wrong. I keep going back and forth. On one hand, I genuinely did violate my lease, and I hid it on purpose. On the other hand, all I did once I was caught was point out that he'd been breaking the rules too, and ask that we both follow them. Priya has a safe, affordable place. Gerald's getting more rent than before. Nobody's actually worse off. But there's a small voice reminding me that I only made it fair after I was the one who cheated first, and that maybe leverage isn't the same thing as being right. So I'll put it to you. Am I the jerk, or did I just play a bad hand the only way I could?